Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome for those of you on the 13th of April, 2020. If you're new here, welcome. Please subscribe, like the video, comment below. I'll give you things to comment on throughout the video. Today we're going to talk about how to remain mentally clear and strong during the pandemic. I've been talking with a lot of clients over the past week or so, and they're saying the same thing to me, and they're saying it in different ways, but the basic message is, I can't keep my mind focused. I can't keep my mind clear. I can't stay happy and healthy during this process. I'm going into anxiety. I'm going into panic. I'm going into fear. I'm going into all these darker places and darker emotions I don't want to experience, because of the things I'm seeing in the media, because of the things I'm hearing from my boss, or the things my spouse is hearing from their boss, or the things my family and friends are saying. And so I just wanted to do an audio today that I think is going to be very timely, and especially with some reports saying that this pandemic focus, and I say focus only because, as I've mentioned before, I don't believe that it's as bad as the mainstream media is saying. And that's not to say the deaths aren't bad. Please do not take what I'm saying out of context. What I'm saying is I think that there is a lot of focus being placed only on certain areas of the story, and that we meaning Americans and worldwide citizens, don't have the full story of the pandemic. We only have the story that the media wants to portray. And actually that leads me into something for the next part of my day, which is Pat Miletich, former UFC fighter and co-contributor to conspiracyfarm.com, I think it is. I know it's Conspiracy Farm. I'm just remembering if it's .com or something different. Will be doing a long-form interview with me on just things about the deep state, what it's like to work in a world where there is a lot of conspiracy, or what I call it alternative truth possibilities. And so we're going to be doing a long-form interview in about just over an hour. So I wanted to get this audio recorded and up for you before we did that. Obviously, this going on a channel for coaching might be uncomfortable for some people. If it's uncomfortable for you, if it's going to trigger you to hear alternative possibilities, then please don't listen. And I will not be offended if you don't listen. But in the same vein, if you have people in your life that are curious and they want to know what else could be going on that we don't know about, please encourage them to listen in and subscribe and do some really good things. I'm going to be using this channel as a way to do interviews and bring light to holistic topics that are kind of outside the mainstream. So every once in a while we will have an interview such as the one we're going to have today. But anyhow, let's get back to the purpose of the interview now that I've gone on my little nifty rabbit trail, or the purpose of this audio, rather. So there's about 7 to 9 ways that one can keep their mind locked in during this period. And the first is really focusing on emotional intelligence and emotional quotient, EQ, and that is realizing and recognizing that you're going to feel a myriad of emotions during this time period. It's normal to be emotionally upset. It's normal to be emotionally raw. It's normal to be happy one minute and panicked the next, because here's the thing, factually speaking, our society hasn't gone through this in nearly 100 years, right? So most of us are treading on new ground, and we have no idea what we're doing. And so it can play havoc with emotions. The human brain is wired in such a way, and I wish that the psychological community was doing more with helping people understand why they feel the way they feel, rather than saying, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Well, that's dumb, because you already do. Let's give you tools to kind of figure out why you do and how to shift it. So the human brain is wired towards a bias for self-protection and self-preservation. So when something happens that our brain can't filter, and you have to understand, your brain filters millions of bits of information, kind of like a computer, on a daily basis. And then when it decides on the things that it doesn't filter, it has to process it through what I call the relatability factor. Have we, meaning the brain, been here before? And so most of the time, like when you're driving your car, or when you're kissing your spouse, or when you're doing homework with your kids, or whatever it is you're doing, your brain has memory, both cognitive and unconscious, that it can call on and say, yep, we've been here before. Problem with something like this pandemic is there is no we've been here before for the majority of people. And so that means our brain goes into what's known as the automatic default setting, or basically like it goes into autopilot. And the autopilot thing for the brain is self-protection first. And that goes back all the way to the caveman, right? And the caveman's looking, but even before language, caveman knew some basic things. Caveman knew animal needed to die in order for him or her to be able to eat. Caveman knew that a bigger caveman could kick his butt. Caveman knew that language was important to be able to build some sort of relationship with others. Caveman knew he needed fire to keep warm. Caveman knew he needed shelter to keep dry. These are basic things that caveman knew, but all of them can be rolled into one thing, and that's protection, right? Self-protection. And so it is normal that in this pandemic, you're going to feel emotions that may cause you to feel off balance or out of sorts, because your mind, your brain, is trying to protect you from the worst case scenario. Now, and I would encourage anybody who's listening to this audio, if possible, please go get yourself a pen and paper. If possible, please do that, because I think there's some valuable information here that can be used in other situations, but especially in this one. And I did want to note one other thing, and I know I'm going off on another rabbit trail here, but I wanted to note one other thing. We have received messages both on Twitter, in my inbox, and on YouTube comments about the sound quality that I'm dealing with. That's going to be remedied probably within the next couple of weeks. The issue is that there's nowhere around locally right now that sells the quality of equipment that I need, that's open and can get it to me in a timely fashion. If I were to order it online, it would take more than a month to get here. My personal assistant is looking into this week some options to get it quicker. So just understand that we are working on that issue. We're not ignoring the problem. But anyhow, back to emotional intelligence quotient. So emotions are indicators, and that's all they are. And I think when we begin to understand that emotions are indicators, but they're things that we don't have to walk through and work through and live through, we become much more empowered, and we become much more independent-minded instead of group thinking, right? A lot of times what happens is we see someone panic and we go, oh, so they don't feel alone, we panic too. We focus on what could be rather than what is, right? Like in this moment, if you have food in your house, you're better off than 2/3 of the world. That's a fact. But a lot of people are worried about what's going to happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, when they need to go to Walmart again or wherever, and they can't get there, or the stores are not stocked. Well, here's the thing, though, and this is where people kind of miss the bigger picture. In 2 weeks, there's 14 days. In 2 weeks, there's about 400 hours. In 2 weeks, there's who knows how many minutes and how many seconds. But there's an innumerable number of potential possibilities that could happen between now and then, which would better the quality of one's life. And so when we panic, we're nullifying the gift of possibility that was given to us either by God, Goddess, the universe, whatever terminology you're comfortable with, or whatever higher power you believe in, endowed you with these opportunities. And using your emotional intelligence and saying, you know what, I feel this way, but that doesn't mean I need to act on it, is super, super important, especially in times such as these. So another thing, too, is it's important to have a plan when what you're planning on in a situation like this fails. In other words, always have multiple backup plans whenever possible. I was talking to a lady earlier in the week, probably, today's Monday, so maybe it was a week ago, a little less than a week ago. She's got multiple kids, and she thought she had found someone to watch her kids. Well, then a member of that person's family, the night before she needed to take the kids to this person, a member of that person's family became ill. And so that was out the window. Now, she could have panicked. She could have gone, this failed, what am I going to do? She could have called into work. She could have cried. She could have screamed. Instead, she said, okay, this failed. What do I do now? What other people do I know that could possibly be a benefit to my children by giving them someone to watch over their safety while I work? Immediately, she understood that she is the only person. Here's the important part for you listening up your life. Whether it's to do with losing a job because of the pandemic, whether it's to do with feeling socially isolated, you are the only person on the planet that can deal with your relationship with your personal failures. A personal failure doesn't mean you're a failure as a person. It means you didn't plan properly for a circumstance, and we've all done that. So the beginning of getting through this pandemic in a healthy manner is forgiving yourself for the things that you've done. Maybe you gorged yourself 2 weeks before we all went on lockdown, and so now you're like, I wish I had that prime rib back. Maybe you were not paying attention to your relationship, and now you're dealing with an unhappy significant other or spouse. Whatever it is, understand and recognize it's super important. Probably one of the most important things you can do is to understand and recognize that you will fail in this situation because, again, you're in uncharted territory. But failure is not the definition of your destiny, and you shouldn't let it be. Third thing, be ready to learn. Be ready to grow. Be ready to have your belief systems and value systems challenged at all points. The crazies are going to come out in this situation. The fearful are going to come out in this situation. The angry are going to come out in this situation. It's your job to deal with them in a respectable manner that upholds your values, right? So if you're dealing with somebody who's extremely panicked or they believe that, the military's coming and going to lock us all up in abandoned Walmarts. I have heard this, by the way. I've heard some really crazy things from people who are having mental splits because of these trying times we're in. And so I heard from one person the other day that they walked by a Walmart and it was completely empty and there were chains on the floor. And he believed that there was going to be a concentration camp off of Walmart chains. And I'm just sitting there going, okay, if this person actually saw that, that's kind of scary. If they didn't, they're delusional. Either way, it's an uncomfortable place to be. But I use that as an opportunity to learn how far the minds of some people are going because of this pandemic and being locked up for extended lengths of time. It's also important to learn who you're becoming. Let's get this clear. You are not going to be the same person walking out of this pandemic that you were when you came in. You are not going to be the same person. Don't try to be because you're going to fail yourself. Don't effort to be because you're going to miss opportunities. And more than anything, embrace who you are becoming. Maybe this leads you to become a political activist. Maybe this leads you to become a volunteer for children. Maybe this leads you to become a relationship counselor because you see what it's doing to people's relationships. Maybe it leads you to become someone who mows lawns for a living because you're seeing the grass grow, and it's easy to figure out that that's a need in your community. Whatever it forces you to become, embrace that, because this virus is an opportunity for human evolution if we choose to accept it or not. It's there. Now, we don't have to accept it. We don't have to embrace it. We don't have to do anything with it. But if we don't, anyone who doesn't is missing out on an opportunity. Make sure to take every opportunity you can to grow, because the more grown you are when you're in positions of authority, the easier it will be for people to take you seriously. Know your value. So much I'm hearing things like, I just got laid off, how could this happen? And then I heard the inverse of that. My boss is an idiot and he wants me to come into work even though I've got kids that are high risk. In this time, those who have unpure motives will be exposed. Those who are in it for the money are going to be exposed. If you have a partner who isn't faithful and now they're forced to stay home with you and all of a sudden you realize they're acting goofier than a pet raccoon, it's time to evaluate that relationship. It's time to look and go, are we really both happy here? there's going to be a lot of people who come out of this and go, you know what, life is too short. I'm not going to deal with negative, narcissistic, codependent, angry, miserable people. I'm only going to allow in my life people who uplift me and people who I can grow to be a better person because of. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have friends who are, going through hardship, but what I think we're going to see at the end of this is a lot of elimination of people who are unequally treating each other when it comes to friendship. And the final point I want to make is expand what's possible. You're going to hear all sorts of theories about what's going on in the world. You're going to hear all sorts of reporters pointing fingers. It's like the Eagles song. I love the Eagles song "Get Over It" from the early '90s. There's a line in the song that says, I'm trying to remember now, but something to the effect of all you want to do is live like a king, but the big bad world doesn't owe you a thing. And it's so true. People who have lived a life of expectation, people who have lived a life of, I'm used to the $600 handbag, or I'm used to somebody doing my dishes, or I'm used to somebody watching my kids, or I'm used to somebody doing XYZ for me. Those people are having a really hard time with coping because the standards that they were living by and the circumstances they were living in are no longer upheld. And I think what is unifying our world is in France, people are needing to come together. In England, people are needing to come together. In the United States, people are needing to come together. In Japan, people are needing to come together. And all of a sudden, if you've been acting like a fool and you're selfish and you're a narcissist, or you're selfish and you're hurting, or you're selfish and you've been leading people on, what I'm noticing is a lot of people are getting exposed for their bad behavior. And so with that exposure becomes, hey, maybe I've been being hustled all along. Or maybe I'm taking this person for granted. Or maybe we're a better team than I thought. But start looking at life for the possibilities of ways to grow, and you'll get through this because on the other side you're going to feel like this was worth it, and I've gotten to a point where I know myself more intimately than ever before, and I can go forth and I can live my dreams and live my goal. If someone said to me at 38 that I'd be starting over, and I had in January I had $200 to my name, and starting over with less than a food bill for the month, I would have laughed at them if they'd said that to me 3 years ago. Now, it's like that can happen to anybody at any time, and there's a problem with the medical system that needs addressed. Anything, and this is, and I'll close with these 2 points. Anything is possible. That doesn't mean it's probable. And nobody ever, always, or never. Times of hardship and stress will make people behave in manners you never thought possible. Some for the good, you'll see charitable people rise up out of nowhere, and some for the bad, you'll see greedy people rise up out of nowhere. And it's just a cost of doing business in 2020. I'll call it world economic, and when I say economics, I'm talking energy as much as money. I'm talking a little bit of both. But world economics, how the expectation that people are just going to sit and take it is there. And now, from what I've heard from a couple of friends of mine who are long-distance truckers and still out there, the trucking companies are having trouble getting people to work because they don't want to go into another city and potentially get the virus and bring it home to their families. But at the same time, they want to work because a lot of these companies are paying, time and a half, double time, because they don't know how long this is going to stay. This is going to stay this way, right? If they don't know how long it's going to stay that way, how can you plan for a future outside of it? In any event, this has been Scott Golden with Golden Opportunities Coaching. As I mentioned yesterday, we're doing a connection special. Connection special is if you're a new client of mine or you encourage someone to become a new client of mine, we're starting our sessions at $50 a piece, which is a 66.7% reduction over my normal pricing. And even if you can't afford the 50, come back at me with an offer. And I've got some offers for some other rudimentary rudimentary things that people can do. They can go and advertise the channel somewhere, and if we get subscribers, they get time off their or money off of their process of future sessions. I mean, I'm super flexible because I know everyone has different needs at this point. But in any event, Scott Golden reminding you, keep your feet on the ground. Remind in a moment. Until next time, everybody.